Hi, I'm Brittney Ashley, your host of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, your guide through this transformative journey in both business and life. This is your place crafted for dreamers, doers, or anyone who has been told they can't. Get ready as we challenge those narratives together. You're tuning in live to the United Public Radio Network, airing on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming on all the popular platforms every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for a candid and thought-provoking conversation celebrating your unique journey because you are worth it. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Some technical issues. I told you we're probably going to run into something, Chavisa. We're here. Happy Monday. Welcome to Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. I'm your host, Brittney Ashley, and we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 in New Orleans. Get ready to escape the next hour as we break norms and build dreams with Chavisa again. I'm so excited to have you back on. It's been almost a full year.
I know. What an amazing year it's been. It's so lovely to see you again, Brittney.
I'm so excited to have you again. I know we're going to have such a great conversation on trauma-informed coaching, looking out for the red flags. So it's going to be a good conversation today, but let's just remind the listeners and even new listeners of who you are. Everyone, please welcome Chavisa, an empowering coach specializing in divorce, co-parenting, and chronic health challenges. Chavisa is a trauma-informed coach, consultant, and educator who helps people navigate complex situations with compassion and clarity. She is a certified divorce coach and a member of the International Coaching Federation and the American Bar Association, and a certified holistic trauma recovery practitioner. With a master's degree in social science and a graduate diploma in adult education, Chavisa brings deep expertise in high conflict divorce, gender-based violence, hidden and financial abuse, and post-separation challenges. I'm so excited to have you again.
I'm so happy to be here. You know, as far as I remember, you and I have both taken the trauma of money training this past year.
Yes. Yeah. So I finished in February and I'm just like tapping more into that this year. So Joyce, who was also on the show, her and I came together and did a collaboration on trauma and money and educating ourselves on the financial side and like really looking into the trauma bits too. And then you just finished yours just recently too, right?
I'm just completing mine, and it's so pertinent to the work that I do because I do trauma-informed empowerment coaching. Yes. And so often with gender-based violence, like 95% of the time, there's financial abuse involved. So I've been working on financial abuse for years. And so when I saw this training, I was like, ooh, take it to the next level. So I was really happy with that, just to like bulk out the knowledge base that I have.
Yes. And you have so much knowledge. Maybe we can kind of re-educate listeners and even new listeners, kind of your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, awesome. So in the, hopefully the short of it is I went to grad school. I got a graduate diploma. Things were moving forward. I met someone. I started a relationship. I became a very, very happy mom, and I moved back to my home city. And when I decided to leave my partner, that it wasn't working, I was rebuilding my life. And then I came to experience, about a year after I had become single, gender-based violence and post-separation abuse. That was eye-opening and life-changing. And I spent a number of years using all the skills that I had amassed in grad school to advance my safety and wellness. And I solved phenomenal problems and phenomenal complications. And in that time, what I really learned is that there's not enough resources for women, especially women going through hardship or complexity. And when I started talking to people, they said, oh, we avoid people like that. We avoid clients like that. We don't want those clients. And I was like, what? I'm like, these women like me need to be loved and cared for and supported. So that's exactly what I set out to do. I became a certified divorce coach, as recognized by the American Bar Association, as a conflict resolution practitioner. And most of the folks I'm working with have had trauma in their past, or they're experiencing trauma presently. And of course, a divorce, just by nature, even if it's a healthy divorce, a rupture like that is considered traumatic. So I work with folks who are going through trauma. And so I'm also certified in holistic trauma recovery. And now I'm in the process of getting this trauma of money certification. So I really want to be able to like love the people that I work with and like help them emotionally, logistically, practically, take care of themselves. I work with them somatically so that they're grounded and regulated, and then I help them problem solve and strategically navigate so that they're able to move forward. Because we don't want to stay in a hard, complicated situation for too long. We want to move it forward as soon as we can. That's healthy, so that we can get through crisis and complications and then on to building and rebuilding our lives.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that what you're doing, because it definitely is needed. As I think I brought in our last conversation, or if anyone new listening, but I did go into like a very traumatic experience in a past relationship, which was actually physically, emotionally, and financially abusive, which when you look back, like when you're in the moment, your brain can't really compute that that's all really happening to you. Like it happens so fast. And I was one of the lucky ones to get out of it so fast. And some people are still stuck in those kind of situations. But when I kind of revisit those pieces, I'm like, oh, I definitely need to like peel back some extra onions and kind of navigate through myself of what happened. And I'm the kind of person that when you go through trauma, I just keep going. Like I did it and then keep pushing it back forward. And everyone experiences trauma different, and it shows up differently for everybody. So my trauma might show up different compared to yours, and certain triggers too, and how our brain, it's kind of showed up. But maybe you can explain, because you do so many things, because there's the divorce coaching, co-parenting, and chronic health. Maybe we can just go through a little bit on like the different silos. So anyone listening who needs your support, they can reach out to you.
Okay, awesome. Well, to my mind, they're actually interconnected, right? Because separation and divorce coaching, so that's, I work the whole spectrum from like loving consensual divorces to high conflict. I specialize in high conflict. And then, of course, for folks who are getting separated or divorced, whether or not they're married, if they've had kids together, then there's a whole conversation around parenting and the transition to co-parenting. And that's often a really big learning curve. So I coach people through that. But the thing is, when we have a lot of undue stress, it can really take a toll on our bodies. And a lot of trauma can take a lot of toll on ourselves. So the chronic health part is like a protected, almost like we want to, when we're going through long stressors, especially when there's kids involved, we really want to bolster ourselves and take good care, fundamental good care of ourselves, so that we can withstand the forces and the pressures on us, so that we remain healthy and intact. So I love women through all of those spaces. So to my mind, they're all interconnected. And when you're dealing with health issues, can often be so daunting, right? Like, what's your body doing? What's your mind doing? Is it reliable? Like, how do you stay in good relationship with yourself when your body or your mind is not consistent, right? So I really work with people on like mindset and like how to look after themselves and fundamentally bolster themselves so that they can attend to whatever issues are on their plate.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. And like I mentioned just earlier, like it is definitely needed. And I actually read just a post recently on Facebook. Somebody obviously was posting anonymously, but they're going through a very traumatic situation. And they made a comment, which it would have been nice to have known when I was going through the situation, to be honest. They were trying to get out of a situation of a lease. And I guess you can maybe be able to correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't look into it, but somebody made a comment that in BC, if you're in a lease and it was an abusive situation, you can get out of it. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't know that, because when I was in that situation in the time frame, I had to pay out so much money just to get out of my lease and just to get into a safe spot, to know that I was safe and everything. Like, how much money I probably pay, like looking back on it. I was like, oh, those little things would have been so much nicer to know, or have like by means of like asking those questions to get support as somebody who was single. I didn't have any kids at the time frame, but it's just like I felt like I was homeless. Like I didn't know where to go.
Well, this is it. When we go through abrupt changes, can be quite a reckoning and very disorienting, right?
Yeah.
But I think the space you were talking about earlier is just kind of like you were talking about how fast it accelerated and that you didn't see it coming. And it's almost like the water, it's almost like that lobster in warm water analogy, where it's like you're in lukewarm water and then warm water and then really hot water, and you don't really notice the temperature changing. So that's often the space of abusive relationships, is that there's like a very warming, grooming period. And I think that's part of what's inspired me, is that I work with people going through such high complicated divorces that have really significantly changed the course of their lives. And having worked with enough clients in this regard, it really inspired me. I love doing research. That's like part of my background. So I've been doing a ton of research on like predictive indicators of abuse and violence, because like there's science, demonstrated research that says, watch for these behaviors. We know that troubles are coming. Like it's not a surprise, right? We see a certain cluster of behaviors and there will be trouble into the future. So I started thinking, and I've been doing a ton of research in the last few years as I, again, help women like rebuild their lives and like figure out, you know, like, maybe they're interested in dating. Maybe they're interested in trying a new relationship, but we don't want to repeat the relationship we've just come out of. So there's a big invitation to learn. And so I've been triangulating all this information, and I just put it together into a new course that I'm offering on red flags. So identifying red flags so that people can learn like the early warning signs. So I think that's really exciting space, because like I think to myself, oh gosh, if my 20-year-old self had known, like, pay attention to this, this, and this, and save yourself 10 years of heartache here, holy moly, I would have paid attention.
Yeah, 100%. Do you want to kind of go through the different kind of red flags? I have for anyone listening and can't see, it's www.mothercorp.com/red flags, but red-flags-workshop that Chavisa is putting on. Maybe you want to kind of like dig into some of the red flags that, if anyone's listening, they can kind of like spot out for. Looking back on it now, like what I've been through, I was like, oh, there's so many. But you live and learn. But like it would be nice to have those conversations and open channels for women to kind of understand what the red flags are, because sometimes we're kind of like in that bubble. Maybe we're going in one relationship to the next or whichever, or we're in this state of like wanting to feel like belongingness, that anyone who maybe gives you kind of that kind of extra attention, you're like, and then you're in it too late in a situation.
Well, you know, there's also that piece around with red flags. Like, I agree with you. Like, I lie in bed sometimes now and I reflect on the micro red flags that I'm like, oh, they were there. They were there on the online dating profile. They were there on the first interaction, but I thought they were just kind of like quirks or anomalies, but I didn't register like, oh, this could be a real problem, you know? And so what I like about red flags, and I wish like, you know, like I wish a few societal changes, but I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if when you went to high school, you learned how to do your income tax? And wouldn't it be amazing when you go to high school that you learned about red flags?
Yeah.
Like it's such a good information set to have. And what's cool about red flags is that it's useful across the, like no matter your age. It's really useful, I think, for especially young women, but even women who are remaking the next chapter of their lives. It's really important information to have so that you can come into your interactions, relationships in a really conscientious way and be mindful about what's going on. So I think there's no time limiter on it. But in terms of good red flags, I mean, some of them are like language based, and there's a lot of beautiful research on that. Just in terms of like, is there a directive in the online dating profile? Like, okay, ladies, message me. Like, we're all here in that forum, online dating, to message each other. So when you get given this information, go ahead, message me. It's like, well, we all kind of understand the terrain of the forum we're in. And then also, but there's a very light, subtle directive there, right? Of being told what to do. And they can be that slight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, I mean, so there's the interesting, like tiny little signifiers. And also like, you know, a more an egregious example is like one where it's conditional, right? Where they're like, you prove your worth to me, and then I'll decide if I'm going to treat you like a human. All humans deserve to be treated decently, but it's like, so it has this conditionalness to it. So it's like, basically like they're almost like the beginning is kind of like a challenge where it propositions you like, go ahead and prove your worth to me. So automatically, like the person who's applying is like climbing up a mountain where the other person's like looking down, like, are you making a big enough effort for me? Like it positions the person who's stating that as a prize. But actually, that kind of relational interaction is not prize behavior. Prize behavior is consent, equality, humanity, you know, like human decency.
Yes. Yeah. I love that you brought that all up. I was just like thinking back and like the one thing that I remember, because I kind of pushed out my brain a little bit, but the one thing that I do remember always what they would say to me is that your money is my money, but my money is not your money. And then the piece too of like anything that I owned was theirs, but nothing that they like, you know, those little pieces where you start to, yeah.
Totally. So it's a total imbalance. I mean, it's a really interesting idea about communally, collectively bringing your assets together to bolster both of your realities and your quality of life. And it's another where you tee up with them, their quality of life increases, but yours maybe even enters into some precariousness or risk, right? And this is where I think that piece around trauma of money and financial abuse is so important, is that when we join forces in a romantic relationship and start to align or connect our financial assets, that seem to be really celebrated in our society. But there's also real risk involved, right? It's like, let's say, Brittney, you and I had a shared bank account, right? If you and I both put $1,000 in every month, let's say at the first of the month, and we agreed that that's what we were going to do, then it's kind of like we set out the parameters, we set out the amount, we set out the timing, we set out how we're going to utilize it. We set out like the parameters of what the money is going to be used for. Then that's sort of like a more conscientious coupling, right? But what happens if I put in $800 and you put in $1,600? And then, you know, like I spend a lot more money out of that account on the things I like it's inequitable, right?
Yeah.
So I think relationships really need to think really carefully about how they tee up, especially since we live in a society where there's a wage discrepancy tends to be between men and women, and how much respective genders get paid for the equal work that they do. So, I mean, I feel like that's a space that really has to be negotiated at home, right? It's like, how does two people negotiate a societal lopsidedness?
Yep. And I think we can kind of dig in a little bit on the financial pieces of where the trauma kind of shows up, like societal, generational. We can probably highlight that for anyone listening, that there's different kind of areas that it does show up. Sometimes too, when we go into relationships that aren't really in the best favor of ourselves, sometimes we're kind of maybe repeating patterns that we never realized in the past until you start having like those internal reflections of what's really going on here. I would say, like, I'll just use me as an example. Like, I think like I was just in like I was in a relationship before that all of this, and I thought this person was like, I was going to marry this person. Like, this is the person for me. And then I was absolutely devastated that they didn't see that. And then we broke up. And then I just kind of went a little, I would say not crazy, but through the motions. And then found this other individual who I was completely blinded on, like blindsided. And everyone warned me. Like, randomly, we grew up from the same town, like back in, I don't want to say certain areas, but it's just in case they're listening. But it's just kind of like so many people like, no, no, no. But sometimes we're just kind of like blinded too. And maybe not also grown up or even talked about the certain kind of mechanisms or wordings. Like you're saying, like the different languages. Like when you said that, I was like, I should have probably paid attention to all these different things that they were saying to me, but I was so blinded over here because I just wanted also that compassion that I thought was compassion and love.
And this is, I think, what's really valuable about the red flag information and having those identification, that information early on, is that once a relationship is started and there starts to be these mutual investments, shared social circle, shared housing, shared resources, shared finances, there, relationships, friendship, communities, spiritual communities, maybe kids, maybe, that there's a lot invested in there. And that investment is part of what makes it really hard to leave an abusive relationship, because there's been so much time and often hope that things are going to improve. And that's why knowing about red flags early on is so valuable, because, if you can catch that like super early on and be like, or you're kind of a cluster of them, you can be like really mindful, because before you start to have these mutual investments or investment in the relationship, it's much easier to extricate yourself and walk away.
Yeah. And sometimes it does happen, like even like for me, like it happens so fast. Like we moved in really fast. And I'm like, I don't even remember having the conversation of moving in together. Like looking back on it, and I'm like, it was just there. And before I knew it, they were actually moving in. And I was like, I don't really remember any of these conversations. It was just kind of like, it was like, I guess in a way, his idea, and I didn't have a say, right? So it's also being mindful too of like, yes, the language, but also what would be the right word for it?
Well, it's the speed with which it's happening. So, but I think what you're raising for me, and I talk to my clients when I'm divorce coaching about this all the time, is that when we're two humans together, what we're doing is negotiating. And usually people are like really uncomfortable with negotiating. They don't feel like that's a comfortable space for them. I mean, to get divorced is a very big negotiation. But, actually at all times we're negotiating. We said, we discussed what time we would have today's call, right? You said, come on board 5 or 10 minutes early. Like what we're doing is negotiating with each other. And so early dating and early interactions is all about, and I would love for people to like put this frame on it, like put this lens on it, is like early interactions is about negotiating, right? It's like, hey, I want your name. I'm like, I don't use my name online. And they say, yeah, I totally respect that. I totally understand why you would do that. Or they say, whatever. If you can't share your name, this isn't going to go. And it's like, yeah, because you're not listening to my request, right? Like there's a bypass of information. So I feel like every time there's room for negotiation, especially with early dating, it's awesome, right? Because that's the space where they'll actually tell you something about themselves. They want to meet on Thursday. You prefer to meet on Tuesday. Can you work it out? Like, are you bullying? Yeah, because that's where the minutia of how the negotiations are going to go down is going to work. And so I think instead of like being uncomfortable with negotiation, be like, oh, this is negotiation. I'm going to go in and test this one out.
Would you say that too, like for, like I just did a presentation a few weeks ago now on just how we can step into being confident. So, and stats have shown that it's hard for women to be confident sometimes to negotiate because maybe there's imposter syndrome thoughts or some kind of pieces in there that feel like we're not worthy enough to stand up in that kind of frame. And I do think that kind of can roll into like relationships a bit. I don't know, how do you feel? How do you see that, Chavisa? Because I feel like looking back on myself past of like, I'm like, I wasn't very confident individual. Like I'm still getting there. But looking at like the negotiation piece is like, I feel like I would just be very shy and quiet and like, okay, like keep on going kind of situation.
So I think knowledge is power in that sense.
Mhm.
So like let's use the example of um in the past where someone moved in with you pretty quickly and there wasn't discussion about it.
Mhm.
Like it's like there's opportunities like who's going to pay the hydro? Who's paying the internet? How is
Yeah.
the phone going to work? Where's my kid's bedroom? How do you feel about having a kid in the house? I like eating spinach. You
Yeah.
eat this. I don't really want that smell in the house. Like, do you want a garden? Are you going to help water the garden? Like, where are we going to store the bikes? I'm not comfortable with the bikes in the living room. Can you vacuum after the dirt in with the bikes? Like there's all these spaces to be like negotiate, 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 just to like produce a functioning space. So I think when we really think about it, it's just getting informed about how the space, like how it could be, then we
Mhm.
have more spaces to go in and negotiate.
Yeah. I like that. 100%. Um, I know we were going to talk a little bit too about, did you want to dig a little bit more on financial abuse and what that could maybe look like? Because I think you and we have a good knowledge of it, but maybe we can kind of break it down a little bit for anybody who's never even heard of it before, what financial abuse is, how it can show up. I think would be good just to have a little bit of a more educational piece on it.
So we live in capitalism, and so we tend to work for money. And
Yep.
we live in a space where we're paying for things like housing and our transportation and food and childcare, these kinds of things. So there's an exchange of money happening at all times. But I think also we live in capitalism that has access to tools. So some tools are like a line of credit or a credit card. And each of those tools has a parameter on it. So like if I don't pay my Visa in 28 days, then it starts to accrue really high interest, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much money I can spend on it before it starts to let the bank know that there's alarm sounds going off, that I've lost control of my ability to pay this back. The banks are watching very carefully on terms of like percentages and like watching your, not a one-time response, but they're watching your long-term behavioral ability to like consistently pay back every 28 days,
Mhm.
every 28 days. And so when we do these kind of consistent financial behaviors over time, what it does is it builds a credit score. So it kind of gives us the spine of our financial system.
Mhm.
So now, if you start to have financial abuse, it can be things like, again, like rerouting of your paycheck or managing what you're able to spend your money on, having another person determine for you how you're going to spend your money, or taking your money, or impacting your ability to get work, or impacting your ability to pay for things like school or childcare, which for women particularly impact their livelihoods, right? Like I can't go to work unless I've got childcare, and it's way easier to get a good paying job if you can access education, right? So there's
Yep.
all these like pieces to it.
It's layers on top of layers. Like, and that's like the whole premise of like why I also started creative dynamics, because when I had my first kiddo, I learned real fast that the world isn't really meant for moms/parents because it's not flexible. Even if they say that they are flexible, they are not flexible. Unfortunately, we are very like corporate still kind of setting in a way, even if you're not in a corporate setting, very 9 to 5, like you get like maybe if you're lucky 2 weeks off paid for, which to me is still bananas. I feel like everyone should automatically get Christmas time. This is just me. This is probably why I'm an entrepreneur now.
Well, I think that, I mean, you and I are in this boat, which is the beauty of running our own businesses, because, and the research verifies this, moms with kids that are school age are negatively impacted in the workforce because the workforce doesn't really honor parenthood or motherhood. And so it's actually much easier to have to figure out a way to get autonomy over your schedule. And for women in capitalism, one way to do that is to become entrepreneurs and try and start a business that you can set your own hours, right? I can work at 11 p.m. if I want, and I can work on the weekends when my kid's not home, and I can take clients whenever I want. And I do, like in my line of work, usually people are calling me and they're pretty stressed out. So I try and be really responsive to them. I've had clients at 7 a.m. I've had clients at 11 p.m. I talk to people on, stat holidays because that's when they are free and available. So, it's like a lot of women come to this space of becoming their own bosses in entrepreneurship because out of need, and of course, kids have a long trajectory, right? Like this is not a 1-year project. This is a 18-year project. So cool. Let's do it.
100%. Like I'm almost, when both of them are going to be in elementary school soon, and I'm like, I see the light, but then I'm like, not really, because I still like, then you have to still think about before and after school care. Like you're still kind of stuck a little bit. I don't want to say in a bubble, but just in a loop that you feel like sometimes you can move forward, but then you can't in certain ways, because also too, like, I don't know how it is for the rest of the world, but like just to get the buses or scheduling for that. Like I know so many people here can't even get school buses because we're so packed, and now they're putting kids on public transit. So, it's just crazy. But no, I do think that I would really like to see the way of the world to change to be more flexible for parents, from moms or even single dads, because I do think it is, we've been seeing this such an issue for however many years. So I think it's time for a change to really have more of a flexibility with employers of perhaps they offer childcare. That would be nice. Or just that extra understanding, because it is hard to be a parent.
I love policy work and I love research and strategy. And I inquired about this, and a lot of workplaces are not able, they would be interested in having childcare on site, and they don't fit inside the parameters of the policies needed for what's required for a childcare space, because often they need outdoor space and they don't have that. So it's kind of interesting. It's like we've got cities that are built with particular kind of infrastructure. Like a corporate building makes sense as a corporate building, but really the rooftops should have been activated as a childcare space, right? And they put in really safe rooftops in there, but the building wasn't built like that in the 80s or 90s or whatever. And so 30 years later, there's still no childcare for that space. It's an interesting trajectory.
Well, even too, like thinking about just how school systems are and how we still need before and after school care system. I know there's some places, I believe in Canada, that they'll offer it. Maybe my girlfriend's from Quebec, so she said that it's kind of like more rolled into the school system where you can do the before after school care, and they have it all sorted out a little bit better. But here in BC, we're not there yet. So I
think I saw something that the premier is interested in that.
I did see that, which is nice that we're having the conversations about it. It would be nice to see it sooner than later. But,
yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one because our kids age out by the time the policy gets enacted, right?
100%. Yeah. Well, is there more that you want to tell about your workshop that you have with yeah.
Okay, so I work with people who are dealing with lots of complexity, lots of challenges, often high conflict challenges, often financial abuse. And as I was kind of alluding to earlier, if you have a financial abuse issue that impacts your credit score, actually, the problem with that and the real alarm around that is that the financial problems can last longer than an abusive relationship. And that's why I really want to work with women and help them safeguard and steer and strategically navigate, because we don't want those big, it's like getting a financial spinal injury. We want to avoid those kind of things because we don't want that like long impact, because it can be so hard to rebuild from. So in order to try and safeguard people from all the complexity that I usually work in, I put together this red flag and predictive indicators of abuse and violence workshop. It's a 90-minute workshop. It happens on the first Monday of every month. I kept the cost really low because I want it to be really accessible. And so it's a 90-minute conversation. I run people through a whole bunch of examples so that they can start to learn about identifying red flags. We talk about tender spots in ourselves, because sometimes we come, we come to relationships as a way to ameliorate loneliness, or we are, trying to like quickly change something. And so maybe sometimes it's good to like sit and do some belly button gazing and make peace with ourselves and really love ourselves and befriend whatever it is that's challenging us, so that we're not more vulnerable when we go out to negotiate with another person. So red flags is inquisitive in terms of how we position ourselves, but also teaching people like concrete skills as well as like conceptual skills, so that they can pick up more identifiers. And then people are able to apply these to all sorts of relationships. So once you've got this skill set, you'll notice like at work, like, no, this interaction is not cool. And you'll notice like in this social interaction, yeah, that's not okay behavior. So it kind of helps you in terms of like how you position yourself socially and interpersonally in all the relationships that you have.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, like you mentioned earlier too, and we were just talking about the school setting, I do think that would be absolutely kind of needed, just like the piece of like the financial educational pieces in the school setting, maybe like grade 10s and 11s, a little bit older. I definitely think like that red flag one would be really good for teenagers to kind of like listen to a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, young people have a lot to navigate, like the online experiences, interpersonal experiences, learning finances, all these kind of spaces that they're starting to like branch out into and get more exposure to. But yeah, the more we can bolster young people and give them fundamental skills, the better off they're able to be.
I feel like I can't keep up nowadays. There's like the financial piece, there's the learning, like making sure that they're feeling safe on social media. What's AI? What's all these other things? Oh, parenthood.
Well, I think this is the space where it's like you activate your dinner time, right? And you just kind of like talk in a realistic way about like what you're encountering over the course of a day. And hopefully your kids speak openly about what they're encountering over the course of the day. And you just have a solid exchange or back and forth. And I think, it's not that, to my mind, it's not that we can have every conversation with our kids.
No.
Because that's kind of idealistic. And there's, like you said, so many components going on. But I think what we want to do, and what I do, especially when I'm co-parent coaching, is like the idea is that you be accessible to your kids, that you have transparency and trust with your kids, right? It's like my door is always open. If you've got a complication or there's some trouble, I'm always here for you. We know that kids are going to make mistakes. They're going to blunder. And in this online world, they're going to experience getting taken advantage of or having something go wrong. So either they have the experience of having a blunder or something go wrong, maybe even something awful go wrong, and then they have no support and no one they can talk to, or they have someone who's like, hey, I'll talk you through anything. I can help you negotiate this. We'll take these steps to try and help you and safeguard you here. We'll have a conversation about this. We just want to kind of like be available and at service to our kids and transparent. And then they know that whatever they're grappling with, they have an adult that they can resource and problem solve with, which is really important.
100%. I love that. And I think having that open conversation and that we are open for the conversation is really big. And the one thing that I always, right now, what I'm trying to just talk with my one kid about is counseling too. That it, just because I know like sometimes people are like, oh, counseling's meant for X, Y, and Z. Like I want to normalize that it's okay to go to have those extra conversations outside of also home if you need the extra support to really talk about emotions that maybe you might not feeling comfortable with me about or somebody else about, and you just have a safe place too.
And I think like about complexity and especially trauma, that what we want is a spaces, not a space, but spaces that we can process, process, digest, and metabolize, right? And so I think about it as a digestive system. It's like, who could help you digest? Who could help you metabolize? Like it's not an overdone situation. It's a long digestion process. And so having access to somebody like a counselor or somebody you're safe to talk with is just support as you learn to digest and navigate and metabolize feelings, right?
Yep. I like that. I've heard that before.
And I think the other part is that as living human beings, we have all these really intense feeling states that happen, right? And I'm pretty certain now at this age in my life, like part of why humans have such a long lifespan, this is my belief, is that have the invitation to learn how to sit with all these complicated feeling states and be okay with them, right? What does it feel like to sit with utter sorrow? What does it feel like to sit with heartbreak? What does it feel like to sit with rage? What does it feel like to sit with despair? What does it feel like to sit with, just feeling beside yourself? Like to learn to digest and metabolize all those feelings so that we can handle it, all those things that are asked of us.
Yeah, we do process quite a bit.
Oh, it's so much sometimes, right?
It is, and it's okay to have our boundaries, and it's okay to like I've just mentioned, I just did an event, and I was talking about it's okay to put boundaries out, and it's okay to ask for help and not to feel shame of it, and it's okay to give ourselves permission when we feel like it's just too much going on and we need to take a step back. Because I'm an introvert extrovert, so sometimes when I'm in that space, because some people think that I'm like an extrovert, like there's Brittney always at all these events, but sometimes my introvert self comes out and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need like a minute to breathe. I need a minute to like kind of go in the corner and reorientate myself because it's just too much. And so I was just saying to the individuals I was speaking with that it's okay to take that moment and find the peace just to build that confidence again, because sometimes it can come out of nowhere, especially when you have introvert, extrovert, anxiety stuff, everything into mix. It's okay to kind of segue a little bit to the side, take a moment for yourself, and then step back in.
Well, boundaries are critical. Like we can't function without boundaries. Boundaries are really necessities for us. So, and I think also, again, that like what I'm hearing you say is like being in good relationship with yourself, right? Like listening, like, oh, I'm depleted. My battery's low. Like, yeah, maybe lying in the dark on the couch for a couple hours is exactly what you need to like get your energy coming back up again and really like cueing into yourself. I think like when I work with people going through complexity, that's a big piece of it is like listening to yourself and starting to really listen and register so that you can be more aligned with yourself, because that's part of how we get grounded and regulated is that it's the art of befriending ourselves, right?
And like this has been like such a journey for myself. Like I mentioned to you before, like doing trauma with money, I think was like such an eye-opening experience for myself. And I don't know about you, but I cried in every class that we had. But I think it was such like like an eye-opening, like peeling back so many different onions, and even just having the radio show, like I didn't know, I didn't let my brain go there, because I usually would be like, nope, move on to the next situation kind of situation. That's just how I've always done it. So I'd say the last few years has made me realize like the boundary is what I need, and it's okay to say no and not to feel guilty about it. And it's still something that I'm still workshopping on myself, but it's okay. And it's good to put the boundaries in, because if your cup's half empty, or like the saying, like you're not going to be able to give fully to everybody else like you want to. So it's okay to take those little step backs. What does the boundaries look like to you? And sometimes you might hurt people. Like I was just having this long conversation with my girlfriend, just about how as adults, as we grow up, we tend to move out of old friendships because they no longer serve our purpose because of how much draining they might be for us, and or certain, like the boundaries, not understanding the boundary piece. So it's okay to have those pieces and know what they are, because we need to step out fully and be energized ourselves.
And I think, what we're looking for is where there's mutual effort and it resonates, right? Like you can have a friendship since grade school if there's mutual energy and it resonates. But if that falls away, then means some of the energy of it falls away too, right? So I think it's really important for us to seek out spaces that are life affirming. And I'm not talking like surface level life affirming. I'm talking like they affirm selfhood, and they affirm authenticness, and they affirm living in line with your ethics and your values, so that you're like a brighter, stronger light in the world.
100%. I've had like a few of my girlfriends I've known like my whole life, and some days we go without talking forever, but then we have like a phone conversation and we talk for 3 hours as if we didn't even talk, like no time has passed. Sometimes you just have those really good relationships that really are really there, that make that you can be that your authentic self, because everyone, I believe, should be their authentic self and not trying to hide of who they are.
I just got introduced to somebody in my network, and so I picked up we set up a time to talk, and it was like sparks, and I was like, oh my god, I think I just found a BFFFFFF. But like what a beautiful feeling. It doesn't happen very often.
No.
So we decided to collaborate. So we're putting together a host of blogs on blunders with HR. And where because I do trauma-informed training for organizations and HR, and I'm always trying to advance trauma-informed practices. So she and I are writing on blunders with HR, and how HR can become a space where, it's where people and policy connect and practices connect, but how it can become more trauma-informed, and how it can become more conscientious as helping people navigate. That's where HR is the space at work where if you have a health issue and you're at work, that's the space you go to navigate with your manager and your HR, right? About a health issue or a child care issue or an elder care issue or, a car accident. Like you have to navigate it with those people. So wouldn't that be beautiful if they could bolster up their compassionate, trauma-informed ability to serve?
Yeah, 100%. 120%, to be honest. Like some HR individuals I've experienced in my past life in different companies, like I just felt like there was no compassion there. When you go and you're like, oh, like, I don't know, whatever situation, and it's just kind of like blank space, and it's like, oh, okay. When you're with HR, like you're opening up certain things that are really hard to open up about. So I like that. I'm excited to see what you guys put together.
Oh yeah, it's going to be, I think it keeps growing and growing. So I think we're going to start releasing it this month. So we'll join my mailing list. You're welcome to get those.
Your website.
Of course, the other piece is that, we're HR is concerned in terms of like people articulating their sensitivities is
Mhm.
that if it's handled poorly, it can turn into a real cost liability for organizations. This is the space where you can get major conflicts, you can get legal action, you can get human rights complaints. And
Mm.
those take a lot of energy to navigate and negotiate and resolve. So it's like, actually, I think if we take the time to like get ourselves settled and really embody holistic, embodied trauma informed practices,
Mhm.
sure, that front end investment takes a bit of time to onboard people into this kind of like trauma informed consciousness,
Mhm.
but it's way more affordable than dealing with HR messes.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to read more about it. I put your website on, so anyone who's interested to go on your website and sign up for your newsletters to keep
Awesome.
connected. And is it going to be also on your released on Instagram or anything like that? Because I have your Instagram account here too.
Yeah, probably. And for sure on my LinkedIn. So I'll let people know that these things are coming out for sure.
Amazing.
Awesome. It's
Well,
been so lovely talking to you.
we're almost at time. Is there any last minute advice, tips, or anything that you want anyone to kind of walk away with who is kind of maybe going through some kind of trauma in their life right now and or looking for help or support?
Sure. Well, I mean, to my mind,
Mhm.
we could all benefit from a bit more support and a bit more resources. Like we live in a pretty intense society, and so having a bit more support and resources is always useful. If people are interested, they're always welcome to reach out to me. I do confidential, personalized, one-on-one trauma-informed coaching. It's empowerment coaching, so I want to help you get through whatever complexity you're dealing with, help you with mindset, help you with logistics, help you with practical issues. And then we want to see you getting over a short period of time into a better situation, because we want to build lives that thrive and that, are energized and that affirm us so that we can, shine our lights in the world. So if people are looking out for, are interested in one-on-one coaching, please feel free to reach out to me. My door is always open. And I tend to be really responsive to people. So I want, by the time people find me, they're usually could benefit from some loving support. So I always try and onboard people really quickly so that they can get the support they're needing.
Amazing. And I can attest for that for some individuals I've sent your way in the past. So I can't say enough amazing things about Chavisa. So if
Thank
anyone, please reach out to her. We're nearing the end of the show of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. A big thank you to United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network and all the listeners. With that, everyone, remember your journey is unique and your worth is unquestionable. Thank you.